Hi everyone, this is Andre Stoika for Independent Media Association here in Kansas City, Missouri at River Market at the Opera Coffee House, where I am present for a sit-down for meat and coffee with Jordan Herrera, who is a candidate for the 5th District, Congressional District here in Kansas City, Missouri. And I'm going to turn the camera around here in a second and let him speak and essentially discuss the matters that, discuss the issues that matter a lot to the constituents that showed up. So I'm going to go ahead and point my microphone over and pass it on to him and just kind of show you guys what's going on and let you guys listen. Thank you.
Awesome. Good to go, Andre? Awesome. Well, I'll just start off first with just a brief introduction about who I am and a little bit about why I'm running. So first, my name is Jordan Herrera. I'm running for Congress here in Kansas City. That's Missouri's 5th Congressional District. And the reason why I'm running is I don't believe I have a choice. First, I'm a disabled veteran. I'm an attorney and a public servant. For me, this is an inherent duty, and I believe if you have the ability to act, it's incumbent on you to then take on that responsibility to act. That's very common among veterans. We've shown that we do that with our lives every single day. The other fact there is, as a veteran, we know how to put our service first. Service before self, right? And what that means today and why it's so important today is because there are so many politicians that put themselves or their personally held beliefs before people, before the American people. And that's just not the way it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be that one congressman or that one congresswoman's show. It's about the American people. And that's what I'm here to correct. So if I'm really intending to deliver real leadership back into Washington, it actually starts with you guys. It starts with me listening and hearing stories, because that informs me how to be the best advocate for you. It's not necessary for me to just jump into a seat and just spouting what I believe, because that's the Jordan Herrera show, and I guarantee you no one is interested in that show. And it's also not about me. It's not about self-promotion. It's not about ego or pride. It's about people, and it's about people who are vulnerable and voiceless today. And that's who I'm fighting for. I grew up in a single mom home, and unfortunately my parents, when they were young, they had 3 boys within 3 years. Yes, so it was tough for them on a shoestring budget. And the reality is, like a lot of young parents, they were never given the example of what parenting should look like. So they had limited tools, limited experience, and unfortunately for them, they drank to deal with the stress, like a lot of people do. And unfortunately, that expressed itself in physical violence on each other and sometimes us kids. And like a lot of kids in alcoholic families, you kind of assign yourself a role. It's very, very common in alcoholic children. So my job was to jump in the middle of mom and dad and try and break them apart so they wouldn't hurt each other anymore. But from 5 to 8 or even 12 years old, what little kid can do that, right? So for me, my second job was to run out of the house, go and find the nearest neighbor with a phone, knock on the door until they woke up and answered, and then I could use the phone and get someone into my house so they could break up the fight and save mom, save dad, or save the family, right? And that lends itself to my call to action today, which is waking up the neighbors. So when I say wake up the neighbors, there's a fire going on in our house in DC. There's an issue going on in our house in DC. So I'm no longer knocking, I'm banging on doors, and I'm waking up the neighbors. It's the same concept. People are fighting, people are getting hurt. Single moms, little kids like myself, little brown boys and little brown girls are getting harmed and hurt by policies that are reckless. I think one of the big issues of the day is the OMBBB, and I've been calling it the only million billionaires benefits bill, because they're the only people that get anything out of this, right? It cuts away so much money away from impoverished communities, from young people, HIV prevention. It cuts away 988 suicide hotline for youth who are at risk of taking their lives. It cuts away SNAP benefits. And SNAP benefits are something that most folks don't know this, but 1 in 4 military families survive on SNAP benefits. 25% of our military families. SNAP benefits are...
For like, it was something like for every $10 that they spend, it's like $18 that benefits the community.
Right.
Or something. I mean, it's almost twice as much if they use their SNAP.
Right.
And I'm like, why don't you like that?
Right. Well,
What's your problem?
I appreciate that too, because it's like we were talking in the car about this, you know. We hear often that they have a pro-life message. Well, this is pro-life. You need to feed these minds, not just with literature and education, but with nutrition as well. A healthy mind lends itself to a healthy education. And when we have a well-fed youth population and a well-educated youth population, imagine where we'd be as a country. We have real serious problems on our horizon with carbon emissions, soil degradation, and the aquifers in our country are drying up. But we don't have the technology, we don't have the scientists currently to even fix these problems. For example, carbon capture in our environment doesn't exist, but we know we need the scientists. So why are we not feeding those minds now? So that way we can develop the tools, the techniques, and the procedures today, so that way in 20 years we don't have to encounter these crises. But unfortunately, too many of our leaders are just fine with kicking the can down the road. And unfortunately, for my generation and the generation that's going to follow me, that can is too big for any of us to kick anywhere.
And nobody's kicked it in 40 years.
Right. Yeah.
No, I'm serious about that.
It's just...
I mean, when I was in high school,
yeah.
You know, that's when the energy crisis started.
Okay.
Nothing has changed.
No.
And there's still people that don't think that solar energy is okay. Oh,
Yeah.
no, that won't do anything. I'm like, there are already things that are working on solar energy.
Right.
President Obama had a plan to make us the green tech hub of the world. We can still do that. There isn't a hub of the world yet. There really isn't. I mean,
But-
I
but the
realize
other
in Asian
countries
markets they are, but
The other
we can still
countries are
capture it.
way ahead of us.
They are. But if we don't do anything now, we're basically giving all of that commerce up to everyone else in the world.
Right.
And that's just something that doesn't jive well with me. It doesn't sit well with me when we can do something proactive today, right? For example, in our home state here in Missouri, there's a tax on farmers if they want to modernize their farms with green technology. There's a tax on them if they want to modernize with green tech.
Because we want you to use clean coal.
Right.
That is
Okay,
the...
that's an oxymoron right there. There's no such thing as clean.
Yeah. I feel you. I understand exactly how you feel too, because it's just, first of all, farmers are living on razor thin margins. They're already experiencing monopolization in their industry, so the product safety is getting lower. Perfect example is Roundup in glyphosate. It's killing people, and we're not able to prevent it because of this monopolization. And we're not applying antitrust law in the agribusiness like we should be doing, right? When that happens, product safety goes down and people get hurt. And oh, by the way, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and other agencies that are watchdog agencies under this administration are gone.
Yes.
Or being cut so massively that there is no more watchdog to keep us safe and to keep us from getting sick and cancers that are very preventable, very preventable. But under this administration, it's quite clear this isn't a pro-life kind of message. It's I don't care if you get sick, but hopefully you do get sick because we're going to charge you arms, legs, and everything else. And that's just not who I am. That's not what I believe in. I believe more in the sense of universal health care, and that health care is a right. And if we actually treat people like human beings, they're going to be a more productive citizen. They're going to extend our economy greater. And oh, by the way, what that means for all of us is we all have an increased burden into the tax system that then contributes greater to the overall system, right? So we should be promoting business, not holding it back. And unfortunately, a lot of these Trump administration policies do the opposite. You know, not directly, some directly, but a lot of them are indirect attacks, right? One of the small businesses, though, that I do want to talk about is what I'm wearing tonight, MOCBOD, and it stands for Masculine of Center, Big on Dapper. And what's cool about this organization is they've partnered with other companies, small businesses, so it's really a hive of small businesses. So they not only sell merchandise, but they have a hairstylist and a barber. They have a tattoo shop inside. They have a massage parlor inside. But they're looking at expanding with wraparound services. So that's social workers, counselors. I myself, as an attorney, I've considered, I haven't signed anything or agreed to it, but I would throw my services in and say, I'll give you legal services in here. Like I had said, you know, they're trying to look for therapists and things like that to really extend that environment and that network, so that way when young people, like young trans folks, young queer and bisexual folks, and even gays and lesbians, when they're coming in, they're immediately accepted. They don't have to feel different. They're not going to feel different. They're just going to be embraced by love. And one of the things that I had shared with the ladies who were giving me the tour today was that, you know, when parents don't love their kids well enough, it's us, that we're going to love them better. We're going to accept them into our families, and we're going to show them what real love is. That we're not going to judge you for who you love, we're just going to love you regardless. That's what I know about this community. That's what I know about our generation as well, that we've felt the sting of being thrown out by parents, being thrown out by pastors even. And unfortunately, what happens to those youth, they normally go into one industry, and it's sex work. And they're exposed to viruses, they're exposed to seedy individuals who only seek to do harm to young people. And you know where they go after that? Right back to this family, to us. And again, they are met with love and not judgment, because we understand why they went into that work, or why they went into that world, because mom and dad didn't think enough to say, I love you. Instead they said, I see this one part of you I don't like and you must leave. It's awful. But this company, MOCBOD, is changing that. And I love them for that. And it's just a group of people who care. You know, it's everyday Americans who care. And I think that's the most important thing that I've seen today, is this is a collection of small businesses coming together to make a difference. And unfortunately, under the Trump administration, it's made it a chokehold on small businesses. It's so much harder to get the financing to open a business. And I grew up in a single mother family. And with single moms, I like to look at it from their eyes. Can a single mom today open a business? Can a single mom today buy a house? Can a single mom? Right.
There's what? There's like 4 people in college that have gotten together and still
Right.
buy a home.
We've got some of the most affordable homes in the country, and this is still one of the most difficult places to do that. And it's,
But we'll let you rent something that's twice as much.
that's
Right.
Yeah, but even
See,
rental. has
isn't
become-
that wrong? I mean, I can buy a house and the monthly payment is $800, but yet they won't let me buy the house. They'll let me rent that apartment that's half the size of the house, and it's $1,200 to $1,600 a month.
And the
Right.
Whole, the whole thing comes from this massive housing shortage that nobody's talking about.
Right.
But 4 to 7 million units.
4 to 7 million homes. That's the actual number, the deficit of homes in our country today. We have a massive problem. It's not one generation, it's been generational. We have had this problem for a long time. And the only way we're going to get this solved is by radical solutions that involve every angle, from the financing of housing, zoning policy. How are we attacking, low-income housing tax credits have been proven to be very successful, but we know that it's not just low-income communities. Yeah, that's been reduced.
And at this point, it's not just the low income that need the help; it's middle of America that needs help.
Right.
And that's
that's the problem. And that's one of the big issues with the Democratic Party is that they're not addressing and making middle America feel heard.
That's our focus.
That's what they wanted me to do. You know, it's like I lose my leg. I have stairs in my house. Your house is really not accessible to you. You should sell it.
It's your home.
It's my home, but what am I going to do? I
Right.
sell my house and what? Because I'm going to be right back there with everybody else. They can't buy another house.
Right.
That's, yeah.
You know, oh, well, you know, if you do that, you can get on Medicaid. Well, not if they're going to do away with Medicaid.
My Medicaid
That's exactly right.
just went up $860 like overnight. It was like last month when I went to go get my treatment. Now I have to pay my spend down. We went from $3 to $860 after.
Wow.
Wow.
I don't even know what the policy was.
Yeah.
More than double.
I hear that so often though. Just rent increases are not keeping in line with what is proportional or appropriate. They're just, I mean, I lived in California after the COVID measures were repealed. And the first thing that LA was doing was instituting policies on how much you can raise rent because folks were trying to just gouge people left and right to make up for that lost rent that they never collected under COVID. It was gross, and if I dare say it, a little bit perverse to see people do this to one another. Knowing how bad the homeless situation is in Los Angeles, this is what they thought was necessary? It's just,
Done by people with money too.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And it's like they could spare the people a month's rent or something,
right,
But the,
right,
My grandparents lived in Kansas City almost their entire life before they moved to Lake the Ozarks. They never had a mortgage because they could always save for that next home. Because proportionally, you know, if you save for 5 years, that was enough.
Yeah.
And they weren't rich, they weren't wealthy. My grandfather was the
Yeah.
only person making income.
oh,
for the
so
family.
sorry.
Yeah.
And that was what was possible.
You're fine. I needed a better place for it.
Do we need to pull it out more?
Not,
if we can pull it out.
you want me to?
Yeah, I think you.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think at this point, this is going to be a great time to transition. I'll probably jump in the middle there if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll jump in since we're all doing chairs anyway.
That's right.
Slide in. And yeah, so I'd just like to now kind of switch our dialogue to a more question and answer and turn this into more of an intimate discussion, if that's all right with you guys. So just wherever you'd like to start, you know, what are the issues that you care most about or what's on your mind today?
Well, I partly like listening to you talk about things. It's like you mentioned like pro-life a few times. So they always use that term pro-life, and it's like, okay, well, you're not pro-life, you're pro-birth.
Yes.
Because every time they're like, okay, get it. You have to keep your kid, get it born, and it's like, okay, well now figure out what you want to do with it. We're not going to support it anymore.
Exactly
I
that.
got a question about that. Pro-life. We all see what they're doing. I don't have a logic for that. I mean, there's no money to be had. So why are you doing that to these people?
Right.
Why are you forcing them to have a kid that you don't want to support? They can't support. I don't see the benefit of doing that.
No.
On even a greedy level.
Right.
Well, it's potentially like a Christian nationalist kind of thing, where they're like, we want to force you to follow our way of thinking, even though you're not, you may not be Christian, or you may follow a different,
Yeah.
whatever kind of thing. They're like,
Control.
right, it's control.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it is a sense of control. I was talking to someone just moments before I picked Mike up. It costs about $24,000 in this country to have a child. That's just prenatal care and the delivery, $24,000. So if they want to say, you know, pro-life, great. How do we bring that $24,000 down to zero? How do we ensure that moms and dads today are not going to go broke simply having a baby, right? That's one step. I think the other is, if we're going to advocate and say we're pro-life, but we're taking away SNAP benefits from children, how is that a pro-life message? You know, it's not. And the other portions in there, I like to talk about this as well, because like I said, I look through the eyes of single moms. If moms have to go back to work right away, right, because they just had a kid, but they still need the 2 or 3 jobs it takes for most Americans to make ends meet today, especially...
That's not the way it used to be.
Right.
No.
Especially if you just had a newborn.
And it's not the way it is in Europe. In
Yeah.
Europe, not only does the mom get time off, the dad can too.
Right.
So they can, you know, one can go back to work and the other one can stay at home. But we do everything wrong here.
We, as a country, we like to have this idea that everybody is very independent,
Right.
which there's value in independence,
Right.
but we still got to take care of each other. We don't do a good job of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we view people that need extra help as not being. We don't value people the way that we need to, and that's the problem.
I think that's exactly right. And you know, one of my plans and initiatives is to establish a national milk bank. Childhood hunger is a national issue, but there are no congressmen, no senators who are talking about this. You know, like I said, I look through the eyes of a single mom, and if she has to go back to work right away, well, who's feeding the infant? It's Infamil or it's Similac. It's extremely expensive. How do poor folks afford it? The truth is they can't. They have to rely on WIC or SNAP. And the truth is both of those programs are being cut and curtailed more. But what if we had a national milk bank that could address those same issues and allow folks to participate in this? Just like we have a national blood bank and a plasma program, a milk bank will solve those problems, at least in some small part, you know. But the question is, do we have Democrats in office today that are coming up with these solutions? I can guarantee you there is not a single man in Congress who has thought about this.
Right.
I have.
No.
I have, because I have sisters-in-law who have had to deal with this issue, because I've had mothers in my own life who've had to deal with this issue. You know, that's how I'm informed. So going on to this pro-life message, that's how we're pro-life. I don't think there's a single person in this country that says, I want an abortion because it's just my first step. Right. That's not true. That's not true. It is the last step for every single person.
I just like to get pregnant and then I want it to go away.
Yeah, nobody's doing that.
No one is ever doing that. I guarantee you that. It is the worst decision that anybody has to make in their life, and they only have to make it because they have no other choice. That is the truth.
I'm not the only gay that, when I was younger, the girls came to me and talked.
Yeah.
They were my friend's girlfriends, and they had to come to Kansas City and have that thing done. And you know, sometimes it was with their boyfriend's knowledge, and sometimes not. But they weren't ready to do that. It was one of the hardest things. They were crying. You know, here I am, not yet gay, but gay, and I'm having to shoulder, you know, these poor girls that, you know, I'll support you in what you're doing, but I have no relation to my
Right.
You know, I don't have a good understanding. They didn't tell us anything about this, you know. That was one of the things that they taught me as an RA. It's like, but yeah, I'm in a boys' dorm, but the girls are coming to me.
I think people don't listen to other people enough and don't hear that side enough. They project their own thoughts, beliefs, and religions rather than.
Right.
I mean, it's like, okay, she's a sophomore. She wants to do this and this and this. She got pregnant. Okay, I don't want to be pregnant either. I'm too young. You know. And so, but it was a hard decision because, you know, well, we're in Kansas, and you know, an abortion is not good.
Yeah. Well.
I don't even think when Lisa was just tiny. I think she could have almost been a dwarf person.
Wow.
She was like 4'7" or something. She has no business getting pregnant because she probably couldn't carry it.
That's
And that's another thing. When they don't become, you know, if they have a fetus that's not viable, my mom had to carry one to term. It was dead for months.
Devastating.
That has, you know, I mean, she didn't speak of it too much, but it had to be devastating.
Oh, yeah.
Carrying around a dead child.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. No.
Did anyone hear about the EMTALA case in Idaho last year?
What's that?
EMTALA? It's the Emergency Medical Treatment Act, and basically what Idaho had done is a similar construct across the country. Essentially, the only way that they'll perform any of these procedures is at the moment of death for the mother. Mom has to be on death's doorstep before anything can happen. So in Idaho, there were 2 women who had experienced this. They were on the verge of death, and they still were not going to act. They had to be life flighted out of the state of Idaho to save their lives because Idaho wasn't going to allow it.
I dare
They
say
were-
that's not pro-life.
Right. That is not pro-life at all. Thank you for saying that.
Someone die that has more of a consciousness and awareness of what's happening in the world and more of a contributing person into society. So, I mean, people just don't, they can't.
Right. It's just, do they even consider the reality of the harm they're causing with some of these?
They don't have empathy.
That's
Right.
exactly
None of them
it.
do.
Well, no, what was the more recent case? And I don't remember exactly where it was, but I remember hearing about it. Was the woman was brain dead basically, but she was pregnant. They kept her alive, made her family go through that, to deliver the child.
What, didn't,
I may not recall
wasn't
right
it
away.
more like 1 pound something ounces?
Right, I think it was underweight probably, but it may have been Texas. I'm not sure, but it was recent.
I
bet
heard,
it was.
I heard that, but I didn't register where it was from.
I don't understand how.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but
I'm
so
not
the family
sure.
had to
I tried to
keep
look
her
it up,
baby
but I'm not
in the
sure.
For like a month or 2 to deliver the child, kind of thing, and keep her around. Just machines keeping her alive because she was brain dead. I mean, she was gone.
Again, not pro-life at all. You know, I think the other factor in there is, okay, pro-life. Why do adoptions cost $80,000 to $100,000?
Right.
If you want to be pro-life and you want to encourage adoptions, why does it cost so much?
Or why can't gay people adopt?
Or yeah, why can't gay people adopt? Why does it
You would
cost?
rather children sit there, have no food, and have a miserable life than allow
Yeah.
fully capable gay men to raise these kids and put them into a school and give them a good life.
Right.
It's like ridiculous.
Well, it goes back to what I had said, you know, why I'm running too, is people who are asserting their personally held beliefs, maybe these are religious beliefs, and they're letting that stop them from advocating. I think you guys might all be surprised to know this, but in our own district, under our own current congressman, in his whole 20 years, he's never once offered a single bill that protects women's reproductive access. Not once. Like, why? Why? You're a Democrat.
Right.
Can we afford to sacrifice a seat? I don't think
We're
so.
going to have a downtown baseball.
Right.
We definitely have our priorities straight, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I
Like-
think that every time they talk about, you know, the fight between Kansas and Missouri, as to who's going to get these 2 teams, and I'm like, I don't care. They have a building out there. If they'd have kept it up,
I just want
You
someone
may-
to fix the sidewalk so I can take my mobility scooter around. without
Yeah,
having
really.
to go
Well,
there you
backwards
go.
and down
Oh my
the
goodness.
street.
Wouldn't that be impressive that they
I
fixed
get
the sidewalks?
Mad. You got all these billion-dollar buildings going up with luxury, but you have me. I can't even, as a disabled person, take my scooter downtown. in the downtown block of Power and Light, I have to take different sidewalks. It's outrageous.
It is outrageous.
No one
Actually,
cares.
there's right over by the library. I've voiced this with City Hall. I can't even tell you how many times. The crosswalks over there are not to code. They don't have anything for the visually impaired in terms of like, there should be a specific type of walking path that's a feel indicator to the feet. And you're supposed to have audible indicators as well.
Yeah.
They don't work, they're not there. The sidewalks all tore up, and some of it uses brick as paver, but they're all bent up and turned out of place from tree roots and everything else. So I'm glad you said that. So I appreciate you also sharing your disability with us. I'm a disabled veteran myself, and I have back issues. You saw them. Sometimes it's really hard for me to stand up straight, so sometimes I do have to use a cane as well. Not every day, but that's part of my history, and it's part of my service, and I'm very proud for that. I don't use that as like a feel bad for me kind of thing. It's just who I am, you know. But the reality is exactly that, you know. Or hell, they're so worried about making this streetcar work when it's also like, do you not understand how big of an issue this is for people who don't know this thing is running? You know, it's crazy. They don't announce adequately.
We haven't had good, strong Democratic leadership in this area in a while to
Yeah.
get the people in that are really interested in those things. We have a lot of people that have been there for a long time and take their positions for granted. So it's more than one person. It's kind of up and
Yeah.
down without anybody to kind of guide that in the direction back to the people.
Right.
What about yourself? What are the issues that are on your mind today?
Oh, I apologize. I don't have anything to really go into my mind at the moment.
That's okay. That's all right. What about yourself, Mike?
Oh hell, I've been spouting off all the time.
Oh, that's good. That's good, though. I spout off all the time, too.
To the disability thing in a second.
Yeah. Go for it.
There was one more thing. It's going to slip my mind if I don't get it out. But another thing that I find really sad is, as a disabled person, I can't go to most establishments and request a restroom. So, like when I went to U.S. Bank, even downtown, I was having vertigo and trying not to throw up in the lobby, and told them, I was like, I need a restroom, please, I'm gonna throw up in your lobby. They wouldn't let me use the restroom. I went outside and threw up. That's humiliating. I went to a dispensary. I told them that I had a MS and that I had incontinence issues. I was going to pee myself if they didn't let me use the restroom. By the time I didn't make it to the place that I was going with the restroom in time, so I peed myself in the car because they would not listen to my disability. And there's no, in any state, there's no law saying that disabled people should be granted access to restrooms no matter what in establishments if you're a customer, you know. And I think that that would be such a great law for people, because it is so harmful to my psychological, not only my physical, but my psychological health when I get denied a restroom and have to pee myself. Like, that's humiliating to me. And it's little things like that that we could do for each other that would really help one another out and make this world a little bit less of a suffering place for each other, you know. Like, it has to start with like the little acts of kindness if we're going to make the larger changes.
I appreciate you for sharing that, by the way. Like, that's, no, I think that's a massive, yeah, that's a massive problem. That this is why it's so important to share stories. I would never have known that perspective. I would never have known that story or that way of life until I heard you say it. So I appreciate you for sharing that with me, because I write it down. That's how we can be better advocates. I wouldn't have known it otherwise. I'm a disabled person, but I don't have that disability. This will help me to be a better advocate for you, for all disabled people too. Because you're right, I can, now that you've said it out loud, yeah, I've been in that situation where I've needed to use their restroom and they said no. Or I've been sick before, you've seen me. I've been sick before and I've needed to, you know, find a public restroom and they've said no.
Even when you're like, hey, like, I'm disabled, I have this issue, like, and they're still telling you no, that's sad.
The plaza is the worst.
Businesses should have
The
their
plaza is the worst. I can't find a bathroom on the plaza
or you got to spend all your money to
to buy something.
We have these big metro gathering areas. There are no there are no restrooms.
No,
Nope.
they're locked up, or I was out at Moose Park.
Oh, somebody might be doing something.
Then, yeah.
Right.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
Well,
locked up in
they're
this
doing
car.
it pretty well.
Yeah. And I know they have to like winterize certain parts of the year, but this was way past this.
Right,
was, like,
yeah.
But not yet.
Right, there's no reason to leave it open. Right?
No, absolutely not. It doesn't make sense. And yeah.
Well, and I think also like extending that out. If you've ever been to Gillum Park, or Hyde Park, they have a track in there, and it's asphalt, but it's crumbled up. And if you're disabled, it's entirely too difficult to use that track.
Right.
It's a walking path, and it's all tore up. Gillum Park is the same way. It has a walking path that runs through it. And it's got a great little butterfly garden too, with flowers that attract butterflies. So it'd be wonderful for people to walk through. But elderly people can't walk through it because it's always covered with dirt, mold, or dirt, fallen leaf, branches and trees and stuff, and no one's out there cleaning the parks. But you know, I think that also speaks to what we're trying to correct also. Why aren't the federal officers, like the federal elected officials, working with state and locals?
Right.
Why isn't there this collaboration? Why isn't this coalition working?
And you were
We're
talking
already
about
trying to do
other
that.
Countries. You go to places in Europe, and there are low maintenance restrooms everywhere that are just very functional, and it's available.
Maybe it's because they've been here longer than the United States has, and they realize that people have to poo.
Right?
Americans are less
You know, it
respectful.
was just one day.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I don't know, like, another thing, it just disrespectful really popped in. Another thing that I think Missouri or states across the United States could do, or world, but like there's nothing, no apartment complex. I've lived all over Kansas City. No one has ever recycled. Nobody in the downtown quadrant recycles.
Yeah.
So we're not doing our part as,
No.
you know, a community when every single high rise here is just throwing all the trash away. Like, it should be a requirement that if you are opening a big business or like having a bunch of homes or whatever, you have to recycle.
So
I
that's
agree
an
with
issue
you.
With the apartment policies, basically, I guess.
Yeah, there's no
There's no mandated policy that says you have to recycle. There's also, I would agree, you know, it's really hard to, so I've lived in a couple of spaces. I've lived in Lee's Summit, Midtown, and now downtown. In Midtown, nowhere to recycle. No one, I'm sure you can, it's a paid for service that they'll come around and pick it up. But should it be that way? You know, that's kind of not the way recycling should work, that you have to pay to recycle.
right.
These are also recyclables. They're supposed to be recycled into other products.
Right.
Well, that's
Okay,
true.
and you make money off of that.
Right.
Yeah,
Unless you're not doing that.
right.
I've heard those people. Oh well, they're not even doing that. And I'm like, I saw a thing.
Well, the thing that surprised me too
On
is
the
'cause I
news.
know Kansas City offers recycle.
Yeah,
put
yeah, they do.
recycling out with my trash.
They do, but you have to usually pay for it.
I don't.
You don't have
pay
to?
anything extra for it. No.
Well,
I had to in Lee's
whatever's
Summit.
in the law.
So I wonder if it's like dependent on the waste management company then.
It definitely
Maybe.
depends on the
But it's Kansas City. You know, it's got the
Right.
waterfall.
Right.
I know in my building at the Commerce Tower, there's no recycling.
Yeah.
And where I lived on East Armor Boulevard, there was no recycling there either. None. And in the Commerce Tower, it's 30 floors.
Right.
No recycling.
Well, that's what, like, you know, I've lived in all these, like, brand new buildings, too, a couple of them, where, you know, these people come in with $22 million and they throw it down, but they can't, they're so worried about their own money. They have the money to bring recycling to these complexes, but they're not doing it. And at that point, it should be,
Have you
mandatory.
ever heard of the German model as it relates to recycling? Okay, so in Germany, I lived there for about a year and a half while I was active duty outside of Ramstein. And one of the best things I loved about the country, other than the food, the beer, the driving, the people, the culture, the castles, was the recycling. But also, it was just so cool to see because they actually fine people. It was a mandated thing that you will recycle And if you don't, if we find recycling in your trash, we're going to sift it out and you're going to pay for it. It was about €100 per violation. So if you had recycling in your trash and they found it, you're going to pay €100, and then I guarantee you that next month you're going to recycle.
And see, here in Kansas City, if you throw out your recycling, that means it's going to be another bag or maybe two, and you pay for those extra bags.
I would gladly pay.
Yeah.
Even if they force me in my apartment, like,
No, you pay for trash.
oh,
You can every week you can have 2 bags of trash. Any more than that, and I don't know what the price is now because I've recycled for the last 18 years. And so I
Really good.
usually have one bag and it's not even full, and the rest is folded cardboard. Boxes and cereal boxes and goes in that thing in cans and everything, and they just take it away. And you can have as much recycling as you want. So why aren't people,
Well, the larger problem from an industry standpoint, there's not enough industry that is buying post-consumer goods.
Right.
And so that to me is another discussion that could absolutely be had. And
well, is it Denmark that they're making roads out of recycled goods?
Might be.
It's
Might be.
the plastics, and they're like
I
invulnerable.
remember hearing about it. I don't
They
remember.
don't break.
Yeah.
And why aren't we doing that here? Oh, Coke Industries.
Well, yeah.
And
Yeah.
what do you have to do? Every year we have to resurface.
Right.
Oh, it's pothole season. And they'll say that in April. And it's like, no, pothole season started in October before the winter even set in. Your roads
worst
Right.
roads probably in America.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
Yeah, there's trash around here.
It's terrible.
Well, I'm glad that we're moving on to infrastructure, right? And I think Missouri it's got a lot of issues. For example, what I was surprised to learn, because I called the city about this. If you go on South 35, it's going down to 1 lane because there's highway traffic and interstate traffic. Same way if you're going west towards St. Louis, or east towards St. Louis, it goes down to 2 lanes. No warning, no heads up, nobody was given nothing. So I called the city and I asked, hey, if you're going to close down both exits to our city, why weren't we given notice? So that way we could at least find a way to either mitigate that or change our routes or something. And so you know what the city said? They don't work with us. They don't tell us when they're going to be here or what they're going to do because we don't control the highways or interstates.
gotta love great
wow,
communication.
that's like calling Social Security. They're really not there to help you. They're just there to answer the phone.
Yeah. And I just thought that was a completely wrong answer. I was like, dude, are you serious? You're telling me from a major municipal level, you don't talk to your state government to find out where they're going to be next?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Communication works 2 ways.
Right.
You don't have to wait for them to tell you something. You can also call them.
Right.
But come
What are
on.
you doing? What are you doing?
And I can agree with that, but it's also like the state not talking to itself, because why are they doing here and here at the same time sort of thing?
For sure. For sure. I mean,
We're in the area.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's always the case where there's construction everywhere.
Everywhere. And you're not wrong. When I lived in St. Louis, because I lived there for 7 years,
they've had a lot of
same problems. I mean, 64 east heading into Illinois, going over that I can't even tell you how many times in 7 years they had to rebuild that damn bridge. It was just every year there was a new lane being built because the last lane was done wrong. It was a money pit, complete money pit. What other issues do you guys have on your minds that, at the federal level they're not really handling? Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I love though. I'm taking back a lot from this.
One other thing I would bring up, I sort of saw it as a meme, but it sort of makes sense
Yeah.
too, is the whole thing of school lunches. They're like, why are we forcing kids to go to school and forcing them to pay for lunch?
Okay.
We're making them go there. They're mandated to be in school technically, so why are they having
Yeah.
people pay for lunch?
Well,
Even
they
if
don't-
they can afford it, even if they're not lower reduced,
We
why are
don't
we
even
making
want to buy
them do
them
that?
books now. So,
Right, well, right. We
you know,
can
I
buy
mean,
books now,
yeah,
but seriously,
but
we forced them to
that
be
comes-
there.
that-
But
I
we're
agree.
not gonna pay, you're
Right,
not
but
gonna
it
feed
comes
them.
down from the
bit of a
top that
racket.
they keep cutting money.
That's yeah.
You're
They
you're
want
right.
They want the money to go into big corporations.
Right.
Sure. And I think that's kind of an issue that needs to really be adequately addressed with warrior leadership, right? That's what we're about on this campaign. We're about warrior leadership. It's not taking no for an answer. It's saying, we're fierce defenders of kids, and how dare you? I was one of those kids that had the red little tickets, and I got free lunches because my family was very poor. The only way we ate sometimes throughout the school year, me and my brothers, because my mom was a single mom and she had two jobs, so she normally fed herself at work. We fed ourselves at school, at morning and at lunch, and then at home at night, we made do. That's it.
And the social climate of people using that needs to change drastically.
Yeah.
There are people that are buying. I remember Kerry having, he had his food stamps.
Yeah.
And he asked me to go to the grocery store because he was sick. And so I went to the grocery store with this thing, and I'd never done it before.
Right.
I mean, they've got 14 different ways of putting your credit card. And I didn't
Right.
know which one this was supposed to do. And I asked the cashier, and she was like, "You have to swipe it." And I'm like, "Well, I know where that's coming from."
Yeah.
She's looking down on me for using food stamps.
Right.
Well, I'm doing this for a fund, so I'll pass that sentiment on to her. But we shouldn't be looking down on people that can't afford it. They don't
No.
do it on purpose.
No.
Carrie didn't get fired that time.
Right.
I didn't get fired that time on purpose. It was just that, what, we're going to lay you off, and you go, okay.
Right.
Right.
What do you do? And there were so many people, in the last 25 years
Yeah.
that for one reason or another lost their jobs. And we look down on people because, and now I think it's probably a little more incognito because it's a credit card rather than, because it's been, they were stamps at one time.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it was like brown and blue and yellow and red
Yeah,
with
and
the different
whatever,
denominations.
yeah.
Oh, I remember them. Yeah, and our family got
And
shamed.
And people would,
It was called funny money.
yeah, that's, And I'm like, "Oh, do you want them to starve?
Yeah.
Do you want me to? I'm a fat woman. I don't starve.
I love that.
I think a lot of people look at food stamps and then they automatically, like for me, a lot of people never believe that I'm disabled. Like, I don't know, I have an invisible illness, and I think a lot of people look at the food stamps and look at the person who doesn't look like they have a disability, and they automatically go, oh, well, you're just like sucking on the money, like blah, blah, blah. But there's just so many people that are lacking empathy to be able to take a step back and formulate scenarios for other people as to why they need food stamps. Like my food stamps, I
Or
got a
fall
letter.
back on that. It's none of your business.
What'd you say?
I said, or we could fall back on the. It's none of your business.
Exactly.
It's like.
It
So
really
what?
isn't.
So
Yeah.
So what? That. Is it really because this person has got a benefit that you didn't get? And I wonder a lot. That's what it is. It's like, oh, well, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you
I'm
working?
working 50 hours a week, so and you just want to be lazy and do nothing. Maybe
Right,
that's like what's
right.
going
Yeah,
on in your mind. I don't
yeah.
know. I'm not a psychologist.
But that envy mentality, I see it everywhere, and that's what envy is. Envy is, I don't want you to have it, I don't need it, but I just don't want you to have it. And that's what I hear from Republicans a lot. It's not bigotry, well, it is in a lot of cases, but it's a lot of envy too. I don't want you to have it because I didn't have it. And since I didn't have it, you don't get it either.
That's how my parents
That's
were. They're
terrible.
Like, well, we had to suck it up, and we had to work 2 jobs, and we had to. I had 2 kids. I worked full time. I was in school full time, and I said, well, are you happy? To both of my parents, their answer was no, but then they want their children and their grandchildren to suck it up.
Shake, can you
because
grab
of envy.
Jonathan a chair next to you? Or I think you might just have to move that. No, I think you're exactly right.
Envy.
Yeah.
Because I have a similar with greed.
Yeah.
Greed isn't that I want more money.
Yes.
Greed that it is I want more money than you, and I want your money too.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
You know, I came up with that because I was like, greed should be against the law, and I had a religious friend go, well, how do you measure that? And I'm like, greed is I want more money than you, and I want your money. He was like, oh, I think that should be against the law.
It should be. I mean, some people have more money than they can spend in 14 lifetimes here on planet Earth, and they still won't give their employees a $5 raise.
You know, talking about envy, that's exactly what we see in student loans. You know, I come out of the veteran world where folks say, if you want a free education, go and serve your country, right? And I literally looked at every veteran and every conservative person, and I look them in the eyes and I say, if you want to teach a 3rd grader 3 + 3, should you die for your country to do it? Because that's what you're saying. You want a free education, go serve your country.
I don't want them learning that math.
Well, yeah, that's actually what they are saying.
That's what they are saying.
But the reality is when they say stuff, if you want a free education, serve your country, well, that means you might die, first of all. And if you just want to teach 3rd graders 3 + 3 or how to form a sentence, should you die for your country to do that? And the answer is no, unbelievably no, resoundingly no. Now, the other option for a lot of folks is a certain debt sentence through higher education. To finance it, you're going to be stuck with that for life. My education cost around $200,000. I was fortunate and blessed to have served my nation for 16 years and not die. Thank goodness. And I'm grateful for that. But should it have taken that much? The answer is no. I only have those benefits because of everything I already gave.
But that isn't just a Republican problem, that's also a Democrat problem. Because,
Yeah.
Because they follow right along.
Well, you look, right, they came out, they said, all right, we're going to do something about student debt. It got a little difficult, and then they abandoned it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
But
We
even,
were upsetting people, and we don't want to do that.
exactly, but even
And I'm
that,
sorry, that's the mentality.
It is.
They are. They're like, you know.
then when have they talked about it since? And when have they even tried to get to the root of the problem? Because let's say we wipe out magically all the debt, it's just going to rebuild because the system that is causing that hasn't been corrected.
Right.
And that's
Well, that contract that they, you know, it's like what, 25% or something.
Do you guys know what state killed student loans? It was up in the courts 4 times. Student loans 1, 2, 3, and 4. What state killed it? Ours.
Really?
It was Missouri. Mohila. You know the 2 people who wrote it? Joshua Devine, Maria Lanaham. They worked for the Missouri Attorney General's office and the Solicitor General's office. It was Andrew Bailey and his team that killed student loans. I was at the conference when these 2 people were talking about it, and they had smiles on their faces, ear to ear. What the hell? You're smiling about taking student loan access, or student loan recovery, excuse me, and the predatory loans. You're smiling about that?
Were they invested in it?
Well, they work for Andrew Bailey. Let's say that. And now, guess where they're at now? They've just been nominated for federal judgeships in the Eastern District of Missouri. They're getting promoted. That's what's happening in the Republican regime. You kill student loans and you make millions of people pay for predatory interest rates to banks, and you could get a promotion. Missouri killed it. Second question. Which one of our elected officials, who are Democrats, talked about it?
Probably.
That's the answer. None. Why in the hell were they silent? I get what you're saying. They didn't want to ruffle some feathers. They didn't want to make people uncomfortable. But damn it, sometimes you got to make people uncomfortable.
This used to be a purple state.
Yeah.
You're not going to like the answer, but a lot of it is going to start
It was
to
one of the
explain
few reasons. It was like, well, you know, I'm in a red state. I was in Kansas.
the insurance.
But for some reason in Kansas,
Probably
we would elect
50% of his money
a lot of
from
Democrats.
real estate agents and insurance.
It was more purple than here.
course, yeah.
And now it's red.
Yeah.
Why do we have the
It's
problem?
so red. It's
not,
blood
It's
red.
not a single party problem.
That's true. Well, I think, that's a great point. I'm glad you're talking about how we used to be purple. What congressman in our state is talking about flipping our state back to purple?
I'm gonna say no one.
No one. That's exactly the right
Might
answer.
hurt somebody's feelings.
Well,
We got to get out of that.
no, they're comfortable. That's it. You got two elected in this state that are blue. St. Louis and Kansas City. You only got two. Now we're a 60-40 state. 60% Republican, 40% Democrat. But only 2 out of our 8 seats are blue. That's not a 60-40 split. That's a product of gerrymandering. There's never been really a check on it in our state. And from our 2 elected, now Wesley Bell over in St. Louis just won his election in November. He's in his first session. He just pushed Cory Bush, out. So he's just starting out. We got to give him some time to try. However, in our district, this gentleman has been in office for 20 years. 20 years. I expect that this person knows how to grow our party, excite the message, get young people involved.
Can I ask just a quick question?
Yeah.
How many times have people at this table met Emmanuel Cleaver?
I'm sorry, what's that?
How many times have you met Emmanuel Cleaver?
I've never met him. Maybe once. I mean, because he was mayor here a couple terms.
Okay.
So-
As a mayor in the 90s,
Right. I might have been.
1990s, last century.
Met him in this
La-
millennium.
in this century. Have you met him in this century?
No, probably not. Yeah.
Okay.
On the Kansas side, Sharice Davids has been there
Oh, yeah,
6 years.
Sharice, yeah.
I've met her 8, 9 times.
Yeah.
She gives me a hug.
Wow.
So why, if Emmanuel Cleaver has been there 3 times, 4 times as long,
Right.
why we were at one time for
Right,
this
right.
entire table?
Right.
And
He's
that-
never been to any fun. I don't get out now, but when I did, when I was out, I never saw him.
So who's building the party? Who's keeping us from going even stronger red?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, the answer is he's not.
Right.
And what we're strongly saying is, he can throw in a vote when he shows up. He's the 13th most absent member of Congress. True story. Out of 435, he's the 13th most absent.
Wow.
So when he shows up, he can vote.
Great.
However, I'm a strong Democrat, as you can see. Our vote power is the exact same.
Can I correct that? Because it's not because you'll be there. Your vote power will be stronger because you'll actually
Yeah, that's a
You
good
show up
point.
and actually vote.
Then that,
Right.
Your vote power is not. It's not the same.
Not
It's
the
just
same, I'll
stronger
show up.
because you'll be there.
But it's everything that follows the vote. What we're doing at this table tonight, having a discussion among friends. And maybe we're not friends yet, but we're gonna be. Because it matters about what you're talking about and what you're talking about and how you're informing me in my message and where I'm getting it wrong and where I'm missing the mark. Because I'm not perfect and I'm also not arrogant. I think that your elected official needs to say, sometimes I don't know everything and I need you to teach me because you're the subject matter experts. I'm not. I have my areas, but what kind of a jackass goes out there and says, I know everything? Trump.
Well, yeah, I guess we've got the answer
Trump.
to that one.
Yes. And I don't believe in that. That's just not who I've ever been. And,
Top one answer on the board.
yeah.
Survey says.
Yeah.
To be honest, so we've been to. There are really cool, amazing Democratic clubs all across Jackson
Yeah.
County that meet regularly, and we have never seen a single representative from Emmanuel Cleaver's office there.
Yep.
One of the first things that Jordan and I talked about is that we always need to have somebody regularly. He may be in Washington. He may not be
Right.
there himself, But why are there not representatives that can come back
Yeah.
Right.
and report?
Because he's probably got like an office here or something. And somebody should be there, right?
Yeah, he does have enough, and the
Right.
fact that you aren't aware of exactly
Yeah.
where that is. and
We don't know where it is, though.
Like,
I don't know where it is.
I've only driven
on the Kansas side, we know those things.
You've driven on the road?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. That road is kind of funny. I was at the dog park and I was just talking to some folks with Kennedy, and I had asked them a simple question of like, do you know who your congressman is? They had said no. I was like, okay. It's Emanuel Cleaver. And the young woman, she had to have been maybe 29 or 30 years old. She was like, I thought he was dead. Nope. He's very much alive.
Okay, well that's fair. There's just like a street
Well,
named
no.
after him. and
That's
they don't do stuff
exactly
like
what
that.
she said. That's exactly
Right.
what she said.
So
She was like,
I get the why
well,
she
then
thought
why
that.
did they name a street after him if
Right.
he's still alive? And I was like, I think it's from his time as mayor, but I
Right.
can't
That's kinda
answer
what
that
it
for
was.
you.
You're getting streets confused with stamps. Stamps.
Stamps and coins.
Yes.
Stamps and coins.
But it's also the fact that this young lady thought that he had died. She's lived here her whole life and didn't know who her own congressman was.
Right.
You know, that's telling you something. You know, that's if we're trying to capture youth and energy and ignite the fight,
Right.
and the youth in the state think that he's passed away, okay, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, the other part of that is if we look at the raw data, the numbers of our party have actually shrunk. We've lost power in this state. We've lost over $5 to $7 million overall have vanished from this state. So it's like, if you're going to tell me you're going to be the voice of our party in this state, show me. We're that state. We're the show me state. Show me how you're doing it.
Right.
Where are you boosting our numbers? We looked at his contributions because I was curious. Where is this money coming from? And I encourage you guys to do some research on the FAC site
You go to
because it'll tell you.
FAC, You can look up any candidate, you can
Yep.
look up any elected official, and it will tell you exactly who has contributed.
66% of his money comes from PACs. PACs. We don't know who's giving this money. We don't know where it's coming from because it's not mandatory to disclose. Yes, it's all dark money. Exactly. 66% from dark money, 40% from large corporations, and the remaining 4.3% from small dollar donors. So only 4.3% of the money he's raised total comes from people like us.
Right.
That tells me everything. He's not in communication with young people. He's not in communication with everyday voters. Instead, he's getting his money from DC. He's getting influenced by DC. That's why he's not, look, he's on the housing committee. He's a senior member of the housing committee. Why does East of Truce look like it does? He was mayor here. He sunk $100 million in the 18th and Vine redevelopment.
Right.
That's before Quentin Lucas has thrown another $100 million into that redevelopment. $200 million. And you go anywhere south of, I would say, 35th and south on Truce and east of that, it looks the exact same.
Right.
Nothing has changed. Not a damn thing has changed. In fact, it's gotten worse. There are more decrepit buildings, there are more drug houses, there are more burned out facilities than there ever has been. And that's not me saying it, it's the data.
Right.
It's data. So again, if we're gonna prop this gentleman up as this fantastic leader, okay, cool. Where?
If the kids don't know who he is.
Right.
Right.
Okay, I came from Kansas. I knew who my congresswoman was. Nancy Random Adambaum. We made up a name for her. I mean, Nancy Random Castlebaum was her.
Uh-huh.
You know, and yeah, we made up a funny name for her, but she did some pretty good things over there. And she was a Republican. That's the Republicans I'm used to. The ones that we have now that are all about me.
Well, that's a great point. Do you guys
No,
think that we could work with Republicans, like traditional conservatives? Again, not Trumpian Republicans. They're different. They're a different class.
Traditional ones that, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
The ones from the past, if we could dig them up.
Moderates.
Yeah.
Moderate.
We may
Yeah,
have to
Bush Republicans.
We may have to dig them up. Can you run if you're a zombie?
It's almost like the issue is though that like, you know, they're going around screaming about updating Social Security, but nobody's updating their brains. You know what I mean? Like all these like my parents and so on, all in their communities, but like nobody's learning or growing or changing. Everyone is just like stuck into the same mold that they were so long ago, and I don't know how we can come together unless the Republicans are willing to learn something new, and they're not. So I don't know.
Right.
How to, like,
I think the Social Security is similar to minimum wage. Because minimum wage, they've got in their minds, was never supposed to support people.
yeah, it's
That
for
was
teenagers.
just for kids.
Like what
Yeah.
about the teenagers that don't have parents or to anyone to help them? Like think outside the box. There's more to it.
And it's like, no, it was meant to, you know,
Yeah.
it's meant to support a family.
Right.
And you haven't kept up with that. And we want to do the same thing with Social Security because we can dip into that. They want to tell us that there's no money left or it's going to run out or whatever. It's like, well, then what are all these people that we force them to work 40 to 80 hours a week and they're paying into that system?
They give themselves raises. They're happy to do that.
Right.
It's
But
true.
they're not supposed to be dipping into that bucket. That bucket is our bucket, not theirs.
Well, that was the whole thing. It's supposed to be separate anyway, and they put it in the general fund.
No, I agree, and I think like, well, actually, I wanted to ask Jonathan what issues were on your mind, because I've gone around the table already. What would you say is something that's relevant for you that you care about?
Yeah, you know, I would say that the biggest kinds of things that I'm worried about right now are just preserving our democratic institutions and processes. You know, talking about working with reasonable Republicans. I was a Republican until about 2018. Never voted for Trump. And I just kind of like saw the way that the party was going, seeing more and more Republicans fall in line behind him, and so unfortunately I think the number of more traditional Republicans has kind of dwindled because a lot of us have left that party. But as I've seen it, this continued bent towards authoritarianism on the right.
Lay down. Lay down.
I think that's probably
You're fine.
the biggest concern right now.
Stop.
And I actually consider myself a Democrat now, and a lot of that being because I believe that we really need to build the biggest pro-democracy coalition that we can in this country right now.
Yeah.
In order to save those institutions and
I think-
maintain our freedoms. So.
I appreciate that, and I think like we've had that discussion before about working with sensible Republicans, and I just want to challenge the thought that you had expressed a moment ago, you know, about you know people in your family even or towns where you grew up in. What Democrat is going out there and communicating to them? You have a home here. I'm not saying it's a permanent home, but are we offering rent at least? Are we offering a rent security and safety? Because I can guarantee, just like Jonathan, he was aware and saw, I am not comfortable with this regime that's in our faces today. There are millions of people just like him. There are millions of others out in the rurals who are going to see their health care gone. I mean, if this OMBBP passes, 64 hospitals in our state will be lost. 64, that's the real number.
Does that include Truman? Is that on the list?
That's only rural clinics and hospitals, only in the rurals.
Okay.
Mostly those are going to be the most drastically hit. But what that means is if you're in our rural communities here in Missouri, thanks to your Republican friends that you voted for, that means your health care is going to be 2 to 3 hours away from you now.
Right, that's a big problem.
Thank you, Republicans. I want every farmer to know that, you know. They're the reason why you're going to have to drive 3 hours for your well check, or 3 hours to get your heart checked out, or 3 hours to get your cancer screening. And oh, by the way,
your arm just got yanked off by a combine. We're going to
Yes.
have to medevac you to.
Right, and that's provided you can get
And-
the helicopter there quick enough to get you
right,
back.
thank you. Yes, that is the issue. Medevac, and then also the cost of that. Because that flight ain't going to be cheap. So that one healthcare
We make money
experience,
off that.
right?
Yeah.
That one healthcare experience though is going to bankrupt people, bankrupt them for life.
But
But
then we can let China come in and buy up the land.
yeah,
Well, right.
no.
That's what they're worried about in Nebraska now, that the
Yeah.
Republican Nebraska governor.
Well, isn't he letting them?
Well,
Basically.
see, they got all these soybeans, and China's going, we don't want them.
You know, that's a great
Mr.
point.
Trump, but we made all these soybeans, and China doesn't want to buy them because of your policies.
So, you know, USAID was cut, right? Completely cut. This state was disproportionately hit. Do you know how much money we lost? Our farmers lost? Just this state alone? $12 billion. That's just our farmers who were selling soy and corn.
But this is going to make the best economy ever.
$12 billion
Big
loss.
league.
Yeah, bigly.
That's the golden age.
So, but you know, I'm going to be fair to my Democratic, electeds. They don't know farm issues. They don't talk farm issues because Democrats don't get smart on rural issues. They don't take the time.
Can I, real quick?
Yeah.
So, again, to brag, because on the other side, Sharice Davids, when her district was gerrymandered, she got a huge swath of agricultural land. She went in, made sure she was on the ag committee, went down to those people and said, I know you're not going to vote for me, but you know what? Tell me everything that I
Yeah.
need to know so that I can give you the best service possible.
Yeah.
That is what's possible from a Democratic leader.
She's a smart lady.
I want to share one last story about Mr. Cleaver. He held a teletown hall on February 19th of this year. And this is what really ignited my fight and pissed me off more than anything else. He tells a story on the phone, and it's a teletown hall, first of all. Have the balls to show up, sir. He did a teletown hall, and over the phone he tells us that my district has expanded, and I have now apple orchards in my district. And he says he went out to visit the apple orchards and talk to farmers. And he heard this story from a farmer, and he thought the story was so important he had to share this one story. He says the farmer was so concerned about Trump's deportation plan because who's going to be there to pick up the apples? And Mr. Cleaver thought that this was the story to share. Who's going to be there to pick up the apples? Because there were going to be no undocumented people there to do the labor. Okay, first of all, that's a racist stereotype and trope that doesn't need to be coming out of Democratic voices or mouths ever. Ever. The real number is 14%. That's how much Hispanic and Latino contributions are to the agricultural industry nationally. 14%. We're not even a majority of it. But when you talk
Not
about
that farmer.
no, but well, and that's the other thing is they don't mind exploiting undocumented labor because they don't have to pay benefits. They don't have to pay, a livable wage. They can exploit these people.
So,
And-
why are you complaining? You treat them like crap and they do everything for you for nothing.
Exactly that. So why in the hell is our congressman promoting that? I don't think that's right.
Well, right. And why is he not asking the question, okay, you're relating this story to me, but why are you telling me you have this many undocumented people working your farm?
Exactly. Why are you hiring them if this is the issue?
Right.
It's
They
just-
spit that out and think it doesn't matter. They said
You know where we have a bigger contribution from Hispanic and Latino and even folks who are here unauthorized or undocumented? Natural disaster relief. We also have a bigger presence
we
in
don't want to do that either.
natural disaster relief,
Yeah,
wildfires,
but you have-
forest
yeah, but
deforestation.
you have a hurricane or a tornado.
But we don't want other people to have that. But when it happens to us, then we go and we complain about why do
Right.
we have this.
Right.
We're also a bigger contributor to infrastructure in our interstates and highways and also construction. That's where they have their bigger presence. but we only hear about them in two industries: agriculture and service, whether that's hotel or service industries like labor markets, things like that. Very degrading language. And what I've consistently said is we are smarter than this. Please give us credit. Our culture is more than just a Taco Tuesday. We are more than just a sombrero on Cinco de Mayo. We deserve to be treated like real people, damn it. We're in the Supreme Court.
Don't close their restaurants, please.
No,
I
but
I have one on the corner and I love those
right.
guys.
I think that's wonderful. Embrace our culture, but treat us like human beings when you're done.
But it's their business too. I mean, they've
Right.
grown this business.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the
And
thing.
there's a reason for them still being there is
Right.
because they were good at it.
Well, yeah, that's embracing our
Then
culture.
my teacher friend that is Latino,
Yeah,
okay, let's keep him here too. He's,
Right.
He's good with the kids.
It's so much more than just picking
Right.
apples. It is across
Yeah.
all industries.
teachers,
professional
Right.
lawyers,
Well, plus,
Public
again,
servants,
there's already like
veterans.
teacher shortages. Let's not be getting rid of people that want to do it.
Well, and also, like, one last number that I'll give you is in 2022, undocumented immigrants contributed $96 billion to the American tax system. Yet they don't profit, they don't gain any benefits whatsoever under that
They
system.
pay into it.
They pay into it, but they don't get any benefits. $96 billion.
Well, because those are the ones that are paying into it are the ones that want to become citizens that they keep denying.
It's just,
It's a bad circle, but
Yeah.
they're making it work for them and not for.
Well, again, so that's the question too. It's like they keep saying, "Oh, well, Social Security's run out." Okay, well, you've got all these people that you say can't draw Social Security that are paying into it. Where the fuck is that money coming from?
Where's
Right.
Kerry? Kerry died
Right.
months before he got his Social Security.
Right. Right. So his is just there, not being drawn on.
And he worked his ass off for.
Social Security, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You know, I had said 1 in 4 military families live on food stamps, on SNAP benefits. 1 in 4 military families, that's a real number.
That's sad.
It's extremely sad. We can't, he had brought up, you know, that President Trump doesn't mind spending, I think it was closer to $48 million. $48 million on a parade for his birthday.
Parade.
Gross.
Parade. P-E-R-A-D.
48 million, but he can't feed military families?
Right.
Then he's gonna cut SNAP and everything else for a couple hours of tanks
Yeah.
destroying the street.
I
Let
don't
me
know
check
where
this
this
out.
can go. You know, I mean, I hated playing Monopoly. I kind of like the game of life because I did figure that the more kids you have, the better off you are. But
I'm at a
none of this
crossroads with that.
None of this goes
Gotta do some work.
in a direction that anybody can win.
Yeah.
You know, and he's all about winning. And I'm like, then why are you continually doing the wrong thing?
He is an angry old man.
Yeah.
And there are so many angry old men in Washington. And
They gotta go.
we
They
get
gotta go.
Angry old men policies, and that's what happens. They look at this country the way it used to be when they were on top of the world, and they want to try to get back there, but that's not.
I mean, that's the thing. The only winning they're talking about is him and his cronies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know, I just checked the time. We're getting close to 7 p.m. So, you know, we're going to have to wrap it up here quickly. But I did want to say, you know, you brought up, you know, Trump and a couple of things with him. You know, his approval rating is still at 38% nationally. 38% nationally. Do you guys know what our approval rating internally with registered Democrats of the Democratic Party?
55?
No. 30%.
Really?
30%. We have a lower approval rating of our own party than we do of the president.
Which makes no sense.
It tells us, though, that our leaders and our electeds are not getting it right.
Right.
That they're, look, under the Biden administration and under Kamala, they came out of the gate with rose-colored glasses on, telling the American population, the economy's great. The economy's wonderful and it's working for all of us. It was bullshit. It's not the reality. You know, that's the Democratic Party right now. They're out of touch with reality, you know, and that's what we're trying to reassert. And it starts here, though.
With all of them, because
Right.
the other side is doing so. Oh well, now that Trump is in there, we're doing great. Everything's and it's
One
like,
big
you know,
gas.
you've lost everything.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
The reality is that the pendulum is going to swing back.
Right.
But if the Democratic Party can't come in and really answer those things that people are worried about,
Yeah.
then it's just going to go back the other way, and J.D. Vance is going to become the next president.
Right.
We have to, as a party, step up and actually accomplish what the American people want.
Right.
It
But
actually
like
makes me physically ill just looking at him. Like his energy makes me sick.
JD or Trump? Both.
All
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
of them. I'll go with all of them.
But JD, he just
Yeah.
has like creepy.
He's
Yeah.
okay. There was always the bully in school, and then that little sniveler that ran around with him. That's JD.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's the little sniveler.
He's constantly a contradiction. He, you know, he's like, oh, Trump's the next Hitler kind of thing or whatever, and then he joins up with him kind of thing. Or
then
he
he
wants to
was.
be anti-immigrant, but he's married to somebody who's not
They
from
both
this
are.
country specifically.
They both
Right.
are.
They both
Right.
are.
They both are. You're right.
Yeah.
That's all Trump. What marries is someone from some.
Well, right, because he buys his brides.
And does anybody see the resemblance of Barron and Trudeau?
I didn't even think about that.
I did. I saw
I
this
definitely did
picture,
that.
and
That's funny.
he's like a head taller than Trump, and I'm like,
Oh yeah, he's definitely taller. I give you that.
Huh.
that doesn't look like him at all. And then there was
It's
a
funny.
picture of Trudeau, and I'm like, he looks a lot more like Trudeau.
That'd be funny. But you know,
Melania is like,
yeah.
Yeah, right.
To just tie up the message, though, with what Shay was saying, our Democratic friends are just as out of touch as our Republican friends, right? The only way we're going to take back the House, the only way we're going to wake up the neighbors to the real issues that are going on, it starts at this table with you guys, telling me what are the issues that are most important to you, and then how to advocate better for them. You know, it comes with dialogue, it comes with conversation, and it's not coming from a place of, let me tell you what I believe. Who gives a shit what I believe? It doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what the stories that you guys share, because that's what a representative does. They take in the stories, they understand the issues, they understand the stakes, and then they act. That's the point of being an advocate. That's how you do it the right way. So I just want to say thank you for being so honest and vulnerable with us tonight, and just sharing your dialogue and your stories and the things that matter most to you, because that really is going to be the thing that changes this country. And I think that's a good place to end it for tonight. But I do want to say, reach out to me at any point if you have any questions, regardless, and I'll be there.
My little job is to ask for money.
Oh yes, I forgot.
Mr. Cleaver has received something in the neighborhood of $700,000 from, I think that's about where that PAC money and the big business comes in. If you get a chance, don't feel like you have to do it now, but if you go to the website, you can donate, you can Venmo, and every little bit, it's not asking for thousands, $25, $50 here and there. It
Yeah.
makes all the difference. It gets us to the next level.
Thank you. I always forget to ask for money because I'm the advocate guy.
That's why you have a campaign.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it.
If you ever ask for money, it should always come from somebody else.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that we learn.
I appreciate
but yeah,
that.
somewhere along the lines, we need to raise about $75,000 by the end of September.
Yeah.
So, and it's very doable. It's very possible.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we gotta start.
And you know, great ways to help us do that is also not only contributing with the QR code, take some business cards with you as well, but also just sharing our story, sharing our posts, sharing our videos, and also just communicating it to your family members, to your friends, because they're going to believe you, they're going to vote with you also. That's how we do this. That's how we build the coalition. So I've even asked Shay, reach out to your family and friends as well. Tell them what you're doing. Tell them I'm the campaign manager. So same for you. Like, hey, I just sat down with these guys and one of them talked too much, whatever you want to say, but I believe in him. Or maybe you don't, but maybe you'll say, he's a young man with a lot of energy. I think we should support him. You know, something of that nature even. That does so much, it buys so much goodwill. And then next thing you know, we're invited to the next engagement where we get to speak again and we get to collect more stories and we get to hear more voices. And that just makes me a better advocate, like I keep saying.
We got a year to get Jordan's face out there and his name out there, and there's time for it.
Yeah.
And I think it's needed. Missouri deserves to have the same kind of representative that Kansas has been able to have the last few years.
Right.
You know, let's have the next Maxwell Frost over here. Let's not have the next Dianne Feinstein.
Right.
We need somebody else dying in office.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that.
I also love that you have a disability because it gives a different perspective to Missouri as well. I feel that there are so many people that can't understand what people are going through with their disabilities, and because of that, people suffer. And
right.
It's because those people lack perspective. Like, they have the money to where they've never, had to go without their $800 migraine injection while trying to, you know what I mean? Like, they just don't get reality.
I get that. I do. And I think that's, you had mentioned before that you said I have an invisible disability. And I do too. And so sometimes when I tell people I have a disability, they're kind of like, what do you mean? Mine is brought on by combat-related PTSD on top of neck and back injuries, but it's not every day. So I appreciate how you had said that, but it's also, that's the point of communicating the story. You wouldn't recognize it otherwise. And I honestly was educated by you tonight as well. The way you expressed your story, I wouldn't have considered those barriers before as deeply. And now that I've heard how you've suffered and experienced that adversity, it's that kind of story. It's your stories that really help me to understand better where policy is failing. So I appreciate that a lot. So thank you. Awesome. Yeah, cool. I think we're good. I don't know. I'm here. I'll stick around. But yeah,
Great.
I'm going to turn the mic off.
What do we have here with this? QR code.
So this,
Hopefully you can get out some.
that will allow you to...
Do you have the QR code on that?
I do.
Wait here. I'm in.
Hi everyone. Thank you for joining me. Sorry about the bright lights and everything. But this is Andre Stoika for Independent Media Association, and I want to thank everyone for joining us here for the Coffee and Meat event with Jordan Herrera, who's running for the 5th Missouri Congressional District right now. As you saw, he took a lot of questions from people who showed up here with their own concerns about the community, the Kansas City metro area specifically, which is the area that's covered by the 5th Missouri Congressional District. Right now, he's obviously wrapping up talking to the people who showed up, but I do have just a couple of questions to ask him here. So I'm going to just kind of give it a second and ask him just about future events and what he heard from the community as concerns. Again, this is Andre Stoika, and we were at City Market at the Opera House Coffee Shop for the Coffee and Meetup event with Jordan Herrera. So give me 1 second here, actually. Sorry, I do have one question for you, Jordan. I'm just going to pass you this microphone. Since the light is, yeah, everything's a mess when you're trying to do things live. But anyway, so my only two questions are, one, what are the future events and plans that where people can engage with you and address questions like we saw today, and also what you learned from the people who showed up and asked and told their stories. And I kind of want to just kind of get your take on that.
Sure. Yeah, so I think the first event that we have coming up next is going to be with the company that I'm wearing right now, Mock Bod. We're working with them and we're trying to set a date. We don't have one planned exactly right now, but we should have one in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll also be hosting at Gale's Sports Bar in the next couple of weeks. It'll most likely be on a Thursday evening. And then beyond those two events, we're constantly working with coffee shops to find the next location. So if anyone out there is willing or wanting to have us come out, we're more than ready to come out and discuss, and more importantly, sit down and listen to your stories and what's going on in your lives, because truly nobody cares what I think all the time, and that's the way it should be, because your advocate, your representative, should do twice as much listening as they do speaking. Going to that message, though, tonight, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about disability. I myself am a disabled veteran, but by no means do I have the same kind of disability as everyone else. So I think that was the biggest takeaway for me tonight, was some of the struggles that some disabled Americans have. For example, a gentleman tonight shared with us the fact that most public businesses and restaurants and some retail stores, they don't offer public restrooms anymore. And what that means is that when you're disabled, how do you use a restroom if you have to get to one quickly, especially if you're dealing with issues of incontinence, or if you have other issues like myself, I deal with anxiety and panic attacks. How do I find a quiet, private place? For older Americans who maybe don't have a disability, but they have the urgency to go right away, are we serving them by having no public restrooms available? Extending that conversation further, we talked about public spaces like parks, sidewalks, where disabled folks struggle to even cross the street or enjoy public spaces. The reality is the disabled are often forgotten about and not included in city planning, and that's just the reality, but that's something that we can correct. We talked a lot about pro-life versus pro-birth, which is something I'm so glad that this group of men were talking about that, because it's men having this discussion alongside our women who are here in Kansas City as well, having that similar discussion. But the fact that tonight it's coming out of male voices who are also concerned about how are we supporting young families, how are we supporting children. It's one thing to say that you want to support a pro-life message, and I think that's true for a lot of us. We all want to make sure that there are healthy pregnancies and healthy births, but what are we doing after that? You know, right now the Republican regime is to cut SNAP benefits, limit school access, end library access, and curtail any kind of public education, whether that's through public news, public TV, like even PBS. That's on the chopping block. It just can't be that way. I am reminded, of how I grew up. I grew up with public access education. And to see that going away, that the lights are being turned off in libraries today, that's scary. I wonder for those adults who are trying to learn a foreign language, or hell, immigrants coming to this country who are trying to learn English, who are trying to study up and get their naturalization test. That's where they're learning this stuff. Also at public libraries, you can study for your GED and get a GED. You can learn a foreign language, Wi-Fi access that kids might not have at home. You can have after-school programs, and all of that is at risk. Beyond the pro-life and pro-birth message, we extended that out into education and how we intend, as Democrats and as at the Herrera for Congress campaign, how we intend to advocate for young people today. We also touched on housing affordability tonight, which was really, really reassuring to hear that we are on the right message, that we are focused on not only addressing how people are financing housing, but also financing the construction of new housing, and then also laying the picture out pretty solidly that today, if you're a single parent, it's incredibly hard for you to buy a house. If you're a new college graduate, the American dream has already been bought and sold underneath your feet before you've had a chance to stand on the grass. And that's the reality. But unfortunately, there aren't electeds in office right now that are ready to stand up and fight as vigorously as I am. And that's the change we need to see. I don't think we can have any more stovepipe races either. What I mean by that is Democrats running individually and not communicating with each other. For me, that's one thing that we're changing. We are a coalition already. Myself, Jeanette Cass, who is running in Missouri 4, Bethany Mann, who's running in Missouri Congressional District 3, Chuck Summers, who's running in Congressional District, Missouri 2nd Congressional District, and Joshua Smead, he's running in Missouri 6th Congressional District. We're all aligned. We're all communicating. We're all on the same platform. We don't have the exact same plans to achieve the same things, but we're pretty close. And that matters because when your electeds are all working together before we're in office, you know that we are that big blue coalition, that we're not going to take no for an answer. And it's not just us in the federal level running for office across the state. We're working with Missouri state representatives and Missouri state senators because we are focused on Purple Power 2030. And what that means is in 2030, there's going to be a new census. And what happens after a census is gerrymandering. Right now, we are a 60-40 state. However, we only have 2 blue seats in the state, and we have a Republican supermajority in our House. If we're ever going to change this, we have to be focused on Purple Power 2030. For my work today, it's more than just one election. It's several elections. It's getting Democrats out into the rural communities and talking about the message, talking about how we're going to benefit farmers, law enforcement, veterans, how we're going to benefit black and brown voices. And we can't take these segments of our population for granted anymore. We have to be responsive. And that's what I intend to do. That's where I grew up. I grew up in the heartland of America, in the panhandle of Nebraska. And I'm proud to say that I lived here in Missouri for 14 years. And I've lived next to farmers, fellow Republicans. Most of the veteran community that I know are conservatives, and my time at the Missouri Attorney General's office, I worked next to conservatives. So I know that there are millions of conservatives out there who do not agree with this Trump regime whatsoever. But the question is, as Democrats, are we going out there and ensuring them that they are safe under the Big Tent Party? Are we letting them know that we even are the Big Tent Party still? That we will welcome their voices in, and we will make sure that they are safeguarded, protected, and advocated for. That's what I'm trying to change today, to form a coalition that's more than just my voice, but millions of other voices, and to show that when we can do this together, really form this coalition in unity with a message of hope and strength, that we can do anything.
Is there anything at all you want to add, obviously, or?
Yeah, if I could add one last bit, it would be find local businesses like Mockbod. Mockbod is a great organization. I had the opportunity to tour them today. They brought small businesses together under one roof, and what they're doing is changing things. They're changing the market space. They brought together artists, they brought together hairstylists and barbers, they brought together tattoo artists, and they brought together retail. All under one roof. And the artists that they brought in are all local artists. They're queer, bisexual, LGBT members of our family, right? And they're just doing the good work in a way that's so profound. They shared with me several stories about young people coming in, folks who were dressing in the gender that felt right for them, and expressing themselves possibly for the first time in their lives in a retail space that they've never been in, but they felt so welcomed and at home. And I just thought that this was amazing. And it's 2 women running this thing. You know, it's just impressive. the tenacity and the small business spirit that is still alive. But I'll be honest and say, they shared with me the small business experience and all of the difficulties inside of it. And so I want to say to anybody who is a small business owner that I hear you, I understand your message, and please invite me out so I can come out to your shop and promote your brand as well. I would love to be a partner in your success. And also, I need you to educate me. I need you to inform me about the issues that are going on in your life. Because when you do that, I do become a better advocate for you, because I'm listening and I'm hearing you, and I get to collect your story. And with your story, I do become a better representative. Too many representatives and congressmen and senators today, they're out there advocating for their personally held beliefs. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen religious leaders advocate from their own religious background. That's not me. I'm a proud Christian, but in no way am I going to assert my own religious perspective or dogma on other people. That's not the way our Congress or our government was ever intended to work. Instead, I allow my religion, my background, my history, and all of the stories I get to hear to inform me on how to be the best advocate, to work with morals and ethics, to move us forward in a way with compassionate leadership, and to also enact trauma-informed legislation. That's something that we don't see today, and that's something that I hope to change.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in. Everyone who joined late, that was Jordan Herrera, and we're here at Opera House in Kansas City, Missouri, near River Market, where we just closed up a coffee and meetup event where he connected with the community, took a lot of questions, and had a pretty deep discussion about concerns from the people who attended today. If you want to follow more live streams, we're going to have more on our website, independentmedia.com. It's going to be more on the YouTube channel under Independent Media Association, or on our Facebook page, Independent Media Association, as well on there. But we're going to continue covering a lot of the local efforts here for the Congressional District, especially more of the grassroots campaigns, especially since Jordan is actually running directly against Emmanuel Cleaver, who is an established institution here locally in Kansas City. And right now, it seems like there's a lot of momentum for younger blood getting into politics, which is exciting, which is also why we're covering this and why I'm following and engaging with his campaign. But with that, you guys can, again, connect with us at independentmedia.us or with Jordan at his website, which I believe he mentioned. But again, thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is Andre Stoica for Independent Media Association here from Kansas City, Missouri. And have a good one.